2012 in June, found that as far back as 2006, multiple recommendations that had been made were ignored over the years or just not fully implemented. Some of them have now been implemented, but they have this outdated technology, a 25-year-old mainframe computer. Many of their substations were running off of dial-up internet access. A lot of the work they do was with pencil and paper, so a lot of that hindered storm efforts after Irene and continue to hamper the recovery now.
And when you read this article, it brings up some very interesting points. You talk about neglecting basic maintenance, things like replacing rotting poles that would seemingly make a big difference.
Right. I mean, in a storm, trees are going to fall down, poles are going to fall down, but, utility companies will do maintenance on that. They'll do, like, reviews of trees. They'll trim trees. They'll get rid of old poles, and that'll kind of mitigate some of the damage that'll happen in the storm so that after the storm, you don't have to fix things that should have been fixed on the front end. So what we found was over the years, they had trimmed, instead of trees, they trimmed the tree trimming budget, and we found that they had committed to spending $20 million a year over a 5-year period between 2006 and 2010 on storm hardening projects that would have, kind of protected the system from bad storms. Instead, they spent on average about $13 million a year. Actually, they budgeted $13 million a year and actually spent only $1 million less than that, about 12. So this was something a long time coming where they had neglected the system, and the effects of that are still being felt now.
So as a reader, if I were reading this at home, I can imagine people getting angry as they read this. How does this happen? How does a company utility that's serving the public, a place where we pay more than everyone else in the country for our electricity, how does this just kind of fall through the cracks and a utility not be allowed to prepare for a storm?
Well, I mean, one of the reasons the rates are so high is, they're carrying $7 billion in debt from the Shoreham nuclear situation. So that may have prevented some of the implementations. But they don't answer to anybody. They're not like a private company that has to answer to some sort of regulatory body. So when recommendations are made, they are recommendations. There's nobody really there to make sure they do things. We did a comparison with in Connecticut, which their utility is run by a private company, and after some poor response in previous storms, state lawmakers forced them to make changes and said they would hold them accountable, and they seem to have fared much better in Sandy than we did.
All right, well, we've heard the governor speak about that more oversight, and I know we're going to be hearing more about that. Newsday's Matthew Dog. Matthew, thank you for joining us, the investigations editor. Great article at Newsday. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. And if people want to read that, it's